Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the Peak Podcast, where we bring on thought leaders, coaches, and influential people onto this podcast and share their stories, some of these aha moments that they've had throughout their career, and just get to know them better. So, you guys have been here for a while. You know what we do. We are the co-founders of Peak Fulfillment Coaching, where we help people on self-guided 3-day solo retreats, where they come back extremely clear on that vision. And as we start the new year, we're talking right now, and the end of 2024, as we come into 2025, we have a lot of people going on solo retreats, and they're really trying to reset, recalibrate as we come into this new year. So if you're interested in that, you know where to reach us, peakfulfillment.co, or you can always find us on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. All righty, guys, without further ado, I'm excited for this guest. As always, we are bringing on the man, Gee Ranasinha. Welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you here. You're in the UK. I know it's 7 o'clock your time. So I appreciate you staying up and just sharing some insight with our audience, man. Welcome in.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Delighted to be invited. Couple of things. It's G, not G.
Yes.
No worries.
Yes.
No worries. And I'm not in the UK, but I can forgive you for thinking that I am in the UK because of my accent. But
the accent kind of,
Yeah, that sort of threw you a curveball. I'm actually based in northeastern France, just on the French-German border.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right on. I don't know. I saw something, I think, on your website that said the UK. You said UK
no,
based.
We've got a UK office. Well, we've got a Chicago office. We've got a Montreal office. We've also got a UK office, but the actual headquarters and yours truly.
Gosh darn.
Is in it's in Strasbourg,
HQ in France. Very cool.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of?
No worries. Just thought I'd clear that up, just in case it was a little bit confusing.
No worries. Yeah, no worries. Are you a big fan of French wine?
Well, how can you not?
I was going to say the same thing. How can you?
Yeah,
not?
I mean, when I arrived in France because I was headhunted to actually work as. I was invited to be CMO for a software company based in Germany, but on the extreme western side of Germany, just on the French-German border. So when I moved across, I had the choice for tax purposes to whether to be based in France or in Germany. So it didn't take too many milliseconds to work out that I was going to be based in France. You know?
That's a pretty cool.
No disrespect to German wine, of course.
No, German. Yeah, Germany's an amazing spot. I've been there a couple times in the last couple of years, and it's been awesome. Gosh, it's so cool. Well, hey, thanks for being here again. Excited to have you here. So I'm really curious to know more about your agency. Give us the background of what you guys do. Who do you work with? What do you do? Let's start there.
Well, sure. Okay. Well, we're a small business marketing, branding, and media production agency.
Okay.
And we're also a behavioral science consultancy.
Interesting.
And for the past we're almost 17 years old. Next month we'll be 17.
That's amazing.
Which, for a marketing agency is pretty Jurassic. I mean, it's not bad, right?
Yeah.
So 17 years, we've worked with around 400 startups and small businesses over that time. And to increase their brand awareness, their reputation, their trust, and most importantly, to increase their sales.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, sales is the name of the game, right? If it doesn't move the needle, it's not marketing. It's fluff. It's noise, right?
Sure. That's so cool. Wow.
So even though we're based in Europe, 90% of our clients are based in the US.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And apparently, there's this thing. Don't tell anyone. Okay. It's just between you and me. There's this thing called I think it's called the internet.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep it between you. I'm not sure what that is.
Okay. And apparently we can be found on the internet, and companies find us and they have a chat with us and they want to work with us. So it's like, well, great. Okay, fair enough. And
that's awesome.
That's how we've grown. We've grown 100% organically from day one.
Wow. Organically, huh?
Yeah.
No Google ads. You're doing it organically. SEO, word of
No
mouth.
Google
People
ads,
telling
no.
you
I
that.
mean, of course we worship the altar
Yeah,
that is the big G. The other
sure,
big G, obviously, this is one
sure.
big
I
G,
was gonna
but the
say
other
we
big
got
G,
two
right?
G's in the room
Yeah.
right now.
We've got too many, too many G's.
Yeah,
So many GGs, it's almost like we're at the track, isn't it?
yeah. Man, so
So yeah, we worship the big G's for that side, but no,
mhm,
I've never done any PPC, never done any direct advertising, sponsorships, nothing.
yeah. So what are the
Purely,
different?
purely organic, purely word of mouth and
Yeah.
SEO.
So what are the different services that you offer um, these
Well, yeah, we
small to
can.
mid-sized companies?
To be honest, the range of services isn't the important part. Okay,
Yeah,
tactical execution,
sure. Yes.
all of that sort of stuff is, to be honest, that's the easy bit, because I
Hmm.
think, if we're honest with each other, which I think
Hmm.
we can be, okay, we've known each other for 5 minutes, but let's be honest with each other, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
I think every marketing agency has pretty much similar tactical capabilities.
Sure.
It's pretty much table stakes.
Hmm.
Tactical is the stuff that comes
Yeah.
off at the end.
Hmm.
What's more important, and certainly what's more interesting from our side of stuff, is the work that comes beforehand.
Hmm.
Sitting down and taking the time to understand the
Yep.
client
Yep.
business, the customer buying behavior, segmentation, targeting, messaging, positioning, all of that sort of stuff that unfortunately very few marketers and marketing agencies bother with. So
Sure.
that's really our positioning, and that's our differentiation, really.
Cool.
I think coming from a services provision perspective is looking at things the wrong way, because I
Yeah.
think there's a danger of cognitive bias,
Yeah.
with approaching if you approach a client problem from a services position. Are you familiar with the term Maslow's hammer? It's also known as the law of the instrument. You probably
Mm.
you probably know
I
it
know it.
better as you probably know it better as, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah. There we go.
You've maybe heard of that, right?
I have heard of
So
that. Yep.
right, yeah. So what I mean by that is, the danger with approaching a client engagement from a services first perspective is that you're services selling instead
Sure.
of solution selling. So,
I love it.
if, for instance, you're an agency that specializes in Facebook ads, right?
Hmm.
You have a conversation with a new client, and of
Yeah.
course, you're going to recommend that they do Facebook ads,
Sure.
because that's what you do. But that
Totally.
may not necessarily be
Hmm.
the underlying client problem that needs to be addressed. That's
Totally.
why.
Very cool.
That's what I mean. So we come at it from a more strategic perspective, getting
I love that.
that horrible, icky, the
Yeah.
9/10 of the iceberg that's under the water.
Sure.
Really.
Exactly. Have you had any challenges with preconceived notions of marketing agencies? What I like about you guys is you guys are, from what it looks like, a small team still.
Yeah.
I've had really bad experiences with marketing agencies, and I think a lot of people
I
have.
think I think we all have, haven't we?
I think we all have.
It's a bit like telco providers or
Sure.
cable providers.
Yes.
We've all got those horror stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And
We're all tarred with the same brush. It's like,
sure.
I think they did like a popularity rating, and we were like just above like real estate agents or lawyers or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Car
Okay.
salesman.
We,
Did
you know,
you?
we are the
Yeah.
stuff that you scrape your boot off.
Yeah,
It's
there we go.
low down, dirty, and horrible.
Low. So, did that bad experience spark your interest in starting something like this?
Primarily, yes. I mean, I was initially sitting on the other side of the table. I was a client. I was a CMO for a software company, as I mentioned. And when I was interviewing and listening to pitches from marketing agencies,
Mhm.
they were all jumping up and down about the tactical, right? Because that's the sexy stuff. That's the
Well, sure. Yeah, the numbers,
right.
the data. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, but none of them would take any sort of fiduciary responsibility for the outcome of the plans that they were putting together, right?
Mhm.
Which I thought was pretty bonkers, to be honest, really, because if you look at any other area of business, there has to be some attribution
Sure.
to the efforts that you're making,
Sure.
and not just the attribution, but also in comparison
Sure.
to not doing anything.
Okay.
Right? Which is the other half of the argument, which loads of marketers forget. Yes,
Yeah.
it's okay. We've increased sales this quarter, right? Ostensibly because of these marketing efforts that we've done.
Hmm.
But have we compared that to what would have happened if we didn't do anything.
Totally.
Right? Which is harder to do, harder to measure. But there's too much egometrics, if you like, going on, for us to justify our position. And this is what sort of triggered it off. In my mind, really, there wasn't anybody actually looking at not solving a marketing problem, but solving the business problem, the underlying business problem that marketing is then seeking to address. And I couldn't find a marketing agency which was talking business as opposed to talking marketing.
Yeah,
right.
Makes sense.
So me and a couple of colleagues started the agency back in 2008, which you'll remember was not exactly the best time to start a marketing agency.
That's very true. That is very true. So you work with small to your niche is small to medium-sized businesses, correct?
Yeah, up to about sort of 15, 17 million, that sort of size.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is
because we're a small agency. We're 19 people. Okay?
That's great.
We're 19 people in 9 countries. 9 of us are in the US.
Yeah.
The rest of us are in Europe, South Africa, Japan, and I have 2 people in Australia as well.
That's great.
But primarily, like I mentioned, I think before, 80% of our clients, 90% of our clients are in the US. So it's primarily small businesses up to around 15, 17 million, maybe 20 million, but not really sort of bigger than that, because as an agency of our size, we wouldn't be able to sufficiently service a client bigger than that within the headcount that we've got. And I don't really want to increase our headcount. I didn't want us to be 19 people, to be honest. I thought we would always stay much smaller, but we've got to where we've got.
Sure.
And from my own perspective, from a business perspective, I don't really want to sort of overextend myself and put all my eggs in one basket with a particular client, right? I'd rather sort of spread the risk, if you like.
So, what is a common underlying thing that you hear in that business size from a marketing struggle perspective? What are they coming to you most about? But what is there a common theme? Is there something that they're like, oh yeah, that's why we work with this niche? Is there something that they say consistently to you guys?
I mean, okay, we have to make sweeping generalizations, but that's par of the course, right? I think that the single biggest comment I get is I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've got maybe I've got in-house marketing person, maybe even a marketing team, or I've outsourced my marketing function to a trusted provider, and we're spending X amount every month, quarter, whatever, and we're still not generating tangible results, or the results don't meet the expectations that we had at the beginning.
Sure.
That's primary, and the reason why is because oftentimes, not always, but probably 90% of the time, is because people don't know what marketing is.
Exactly.
They think they know what marketing is, but what they think marketing is actually promotions.
Yep.
Or communications.
Exactly.
Which is certainly part of marketing, don't get me wrong. But it's a tiny percentage of a tiny percentage of what marketing is, right? Yeah. And it's right down on that sequence of events when you're putting together a marketing plan. All of that boring, hands in the mud, dirty work that you need to do up front, right? The research, the diagnosis, the segmentation, the targeting, the positioning, the quality.
Yeah, that tactical stuff.
All that boring stuff, right?
Yeah.
You need to have all of that in place before you start, looking at anything tactical, because otherwise you don't know what you don't know. Basically.
Exactly.
So what you're doing is you're looking at what others are doing, and you're waving a wet finger in the air and thinking, okay, let's try this. There's no real plan. It's all sort of reactive and speculative.
Sure.
Right? So it's hardly surprising that the results of all of these efforts don't live up to the benchmark that you've actually set for the exercise in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So what we do is we come in and we pull apart what people have done. We take what they've got, which is useful. We find out what the delta is, what's missing. We fill in those gaps. We put that strategic plan in place, and either we work with the client and run that tactical side ourselves, or we put training wheels on, get everybody up to speed, and then hand everything over to the client to carry on running, and then pop in again every 3 months, 6 months, whatever else, to see if we need to sort of nudge it left or right, just to make sure they're going in the right direction. Quite often they've got in-house marketing support themselves, especially at the higher end of that revenue figure I mentioned, right?
Exactly.
So in which case, why buy a dog and bark yourself? It makes sort of sense to sort of use those existing resources, and they just need to be led. They just need to be managed. They just need to be shown the way. You thrash through a path through the jungle, and then once they're on that path, you leave them to it, right? And it's not sort of very staid and regimented. There's obviously, there's certain amounts of wiggle room, because it has to feel authentic, in terms of output, right?
That's a great.
But the rest of it, from a strategic perspective, from the rest of it, we're just to sort of make sure they're not going too far left or right, and they're still zoning in on that North Star that we've all agreed is the point of the exercise.
Sure. Very cool. I love too on your site. You mentioned too, like, what is marketing? They think it's promotion and things like that. But I love how you guys define it, which is marketing is whatever people are saying about you. I think that is phenomenal.
Well, and a very cool approach. Jeff Bezos said marketing is what people say when you're not in the room.
Yep, exactly. That's amazing. So, Gee, as we start to kind of come to time here, I want to ask you, what is one thing that you could leave with the audience? Tactical things that they can implement, maybe by the end of the year, one thing that you would leave them with, action item, what would that be?
Speak to your customers more often.
Speak to your customers more often. Okay. That's awesome.
I think there was an HBR article not too long ago. Harvard Business Review article.
Yep.
Not too long ago, and they surveyed a bunch of marketing managers, senior VPs, CMOs, whatever.
Okay.
And like 80% of those surveyed hadn't spoken to a customer in the past 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Which to me is pretty scandalous, really. I mean,
it is.
How on earth can you possibly know what the buying drivers, what levers you need to pull to actually create messaging that resonates with your ideal customer profile, unless you're speaking to representative cohorts of that ideal customer profile on a regular and frequent basis? Too often people they're trying to reinvent the wheel. They think, we need to do this, we need to do that. The thing is, you've got an infinite pool of relevant information just at the other end of a phone with your existing customers, and they want you to succeed. They want you to win.
For sure.
And they will tell you this stuff. Now, it doesn't mean you listen and you just do exactly what they tell you, right? Because that whole customer centricity thing is a bit of a misnomer, but we don't have time to go down that rabbit hole. The point is, you like Gretzky said, you need to skate to where the puck is going to be. By listening to what your customers are saying today, you can anticipate what their needs are tomorrow and structure your messaging strategy accordingly, so that you come to mind when they are in market to buy whatever it is you're selling.
It's beautiful. That is awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think our audience is going to take a ton away from that. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, find you, get more information, reach out to you guys, where would they do that?
Probably the best way to get hold of me personally is on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time there. Would you believe I am the only Gee Ranasinha on LinkedIn? Can you believe that? Isn't that spooky?
Yeah.
You can find me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, obviously, you can get hold of me through the website, kexino.com. That's KEXINO. You can get me there. Otherwise, just Google me. I'm friggin' everywhere. I mean, you can't not find me. I'm all over it like a cheap suit.
Well, awesome. Gee, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad we made this happen. Glad you
my pleasure.
shared your background.
I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
thanks very much for having me on.
Awesome. We'll see you soon. Well, you guys heard it here. What an amazing episode. Gee's a wealth of knowledge. So feel free to reach out to him at all the spots that he mentioned. I think what he said there is amazing tactical advice. I heard something from a mentor back in the day that if you, in the lieu of communication, people grow horns. And I think that's kind of what he was saying there is keep a good cadence with your customers. Keep that, keep them in the loop with what you're doing. They want to hear from you. So thank you guys again for being here. We appreciate you, and we will see you on the next episode of the Peak Podcast. See you guys.